While searching for video ideas, I stumbled upon clips that are hard to explain without showing them, and I realized that's actually an idea for a video. Imagine picking up a piece of meat and suddenly it starts twitching. It feels like strong spasms, but it's just a soon-to-be beefsteak, definitely dead. The video went viral and many viewers declared they were ready to go vegetarian after seeing it. All right, go for it. But how can you explain that? Turns out really fresh beef can react almost like dead octopuses when sprinkled with salt. The piece of meat starts moving like a zombie because the nerves get triggered by sodium ions. Even though the central nervous system is dead, the nerve endings in the muscles are still active, and salt makes the meat twitch. Actually, it's a sign of high-quality fresh meat. But I understand why some people might think it looks like the recipe from the Necronomicon. These scenes were filmed in Beijing on May 30th, 2024. It was a windy and rainy day. A group of workers who started cleaning the glass facade of the CCTV headquarters faced the bad weather after already climbing to a great height. The wind was suddenly and extremely strong, reaching 8 to 10 on the Beaufort scale. It caused chaos throughout the city, with reports of fallen branches and motorcycles. In the midst of this wild weather, a few workers were dangling from ropes. Good thing they all managed to come down on their own and no one got hurt. But even stranger things are coming our way today. Just an unobtrusive reminder to like the video if you forget to do so. And as always, let's have a sip of coffee. What happens if water hits a scorching hot pan? Well, the water will surely sizzle and evaporate. That's just basic physics. But not when the Leidenfrost effect kicks in. It would seem, here's the liquid, here's the hot surface, so why doesn't it go as expected? Why does the water dance around? Here's what happens. There's a term called boiling point. That's the temperature at which liquid starts boiling. Of course, different liquids have different boiling points. Now, if a solid surface on which the liquid is spilled is much hotter than its boiling point, the Leidenfrost effect comes into play. It's really hard to predict exactly when this will occur. Even if the amount of liquid stays the same, the Leidenfrost point can change depending on the surface properties and impurities in the liquid. However, when it does happen, there's a layer of vapor forming between the surface and the liquid. The liquid sort of hangs in the air, slowing down evaporation, and instead it starts moving, like spinning around. That's physics for you. These unbelievable scenes were captured in Pyeongchang, South Korea. What seemed like a cloud creeping along the streets wasn't dust or fog, it was liquefied petroleum gas leaked from a gas station. Guess what happened next? Boom! Right after the gas leaked, it caught fire almost instantly. Kudos to the people who stayed in their car and didn't go check what it was. That's what saved them. Within seconds, the flames spread down the street, jumping onto cars and buildings. It took firefighters 3 hours to finally get the massive fire under control. 14 buildings were damaged, 25 people were evacuated, and 5 were injured, with 2 of them seriously. However, gas leaks are something that happens from time to time, albeit not on such a large scale, of course. What are the chances of lightning striking a wind turbine and hitting it right on the blade? That's exactly what happened in Crowell, Texas. After numerous lightning strikes around the wind power plant, firefighters were notified about the high-altitude fire. The crews responded, but they couldn't do much to put out the fire. Not only was it high up, but it also had plenty of fuel. According to the fire chief's estimate, there were about 800 gallons of oil in the gearbox and another 1,300 gallons of oil in the transformer at ground level. Because of it, the smoke appeared black, and the fire persisted for a long time. Now picture this. You're standing at the station waiting for your train to arrive. And there it comes, pulling up to the platform, covered in blood. First thought, zombie apocalypse might actually be happening. But don't panic just yet, at least for now. Chances are your train is a high-speed one, which means it's moving really fast. So fast that the birds living around here can't dodge in time to avoid a collision. Naturally, they get squished, hence the bloodstains. It's sad, and environmentalists are really worried because wild birds are usually the ones who suffer from high-speed trains. But the only way to change the situation is to wait until the animals adapt and realize that it's not safe to fly here. No one can convince the birds of this except themselves. And here's a glowing frog. If you've been watching our videos for a while, you know this isn't the weirdest thing nature can come up with. But this time, it's not about evolution. It's about what's inside the frog's digestive system because it swallowed a firefly. It's too small and thin, so the insect kept flashing from its gullet. I don't know if the firefly was sending a distress signal to its friends or didn't feel a thing, but it looks pretty cool. And by the way, it's surprising that the frog is okay too. Many species of fireflies produce a chemical that's highly toxic to most predators. And here we can see, oh my, what is that? All right. That's actually Corkscrew Swamp Sanctuary in Naples, Florida, and the pond is just teeming with walking catfish. They all got stuck here after nearby waterways dried up. These catfish are known for their ability to walk on land in search of new habitats and to breathe air, so a bunch of fish gathered in one spot, but so did the alligators. And that's not surprising, as in the hot months, alligators dig up substrate and vegetation to make small ponds, and many fish will seek them out to survive. That's where catfish found them. So the alligators, along with their heat refuge, also got a buffet table. Just open your mouth and chow down. Now that's what I call all-inclusive. This looks like a scene from an anime. Seriously, I'm almost sure I've seen something like this before. But basically, it's just a regular intentional short circuit that happened on the power line. It usually occurs when 2 points in an electrical circuit with different potentials accidentally connect, which isn't supposed to happen. However, in this case, it's due to a mechanical contact that shouldn't have happened, and as a result, zap! During an earthquake, some pretty scary stuff happens, but when the ground starts breathing, that's just too much. Yet that's exactly what was caught on camera in Japan. The Earth was actually moving as the region shook with a magnitude of 7.5 on the Richter scale. The video quickly went viral, as scary and unexplainable things usually do, although there is, of course, an explanation. Moreover, this phenomenon even has a name: liquefaction. It happens when loose, waterlogged sedimentary rocks on the Earth's surface or nearby lose their strength in response to strong underground shocks. Liquefaction happening beneath buildings and other structures can cause serious damage during earthquakes. And if it occurs in open spaces, it scares random witnesses and their social media followers. This video captured a massive ring of black smoke hovering directly above the city. It's slowly drifting upwards into the sky, almost like it's from some giant smoker having fun. What? Are there any other explanations? Actually, there is one. Environmentalists analyzed the video and suggested that it could have been a release from a boiler chimney located about 2,300 feet away from where the ring was seen. The release was probably sudden, and since there was no wind, the cloud didn't disperse right away and continued drifting across the sky. As for the shape, well, it kinda looks like those rings of cigarette smoke. It seems like we're looking at some mysterious patterns on the ground, or like light passing through a weird giant lens, or I don't know, what do you think? It's actually just a rice field and the wind swaying the plants? Gorgeous? Absolutely. Imagine this. You pull into a gas station, everything seems normal, and suddenly, out of nowhere, a fuel tank emerges from underground. No earthquakes, nothing. It just pops up through the asphalt and everything else like a giant mushroom. The weirdest thing is that sometimes it does happen. It might seem odd that an underground storage tank could float. These structures are not only buried deep underground, but also incredibly heavy. However, when floodwaters raise the level of groundwater, basic physics comes into play, and the tank with fuel can pop up to the surface like a buoy. This situation is so common that there are actual guidelines on how to avoid it when building a gas station. Let me give you a couple of seconds to take a look at what's going on and make a guess what it could be. Feel free to share your ideas in the comments, even if you think it's a glitch in the matrix. This was my first thought after all. But if we're being serious, there are two possibilities. First, someone tied a branch to a palm tree using a rope, but now it's swaying. Who and why would need to do that is unclear. Let's explore another possibility. It's like a dust whirlwind, just minus the dust. I'm serious, this is a scientist's theory. Dust whirlwinds form when the ground heats up faster than the air above it. As warm air rises near the ground, it generates a swirling motion that spins rapidly near the surface and then gradually slows and disperses as it reaches the atmosphere. Any nearby dust particles can be drawn into this swirling motion, and if there's no dust around, why not grab a twig? Yes, it's heavy, so the whirlwind may not have had enough force to spin, but it could certainly manage to hold on to it. Preston, Minnesota, a parking lot. Then out of the blue, a tanker truck folds like an empty soda can under someone's foot. Again, it's not some paranormal event. Most likely, when they were emptying the tanker, they forgot to let air in, The vacuum that formed was stronger than the steel could handle, the metal could not withstand the atmospheric pressure, and crumpled inward. By the way, the Mythbusters did the same thing, but intentionally. And yes, it really works. Physics. Darn it. Anyone who's ever seen the Northern Lights in person knows it's an absolutely breathtaking sight. But seeing it from space takes it to a whole new level of coolness. From Earth's orbit, the Aurora Borealis looks like shimmering crowns around the poles. NASA has a fleet of spacecraft circling our planet to observe and measure these northern lights. Astronauts on the International Space Station often catch sight of them from the side. Well, they got the best seats. What comes to mind when you think about Everest? Probably it's that serene, desolate place where people go to test their limits, ponder the meaning of life, and stuff like that. While people do make their way up, the scene on Everest is anything but serene, even near the peak. It gets really crowded in season, with massive lines of people everywhere, and the numbers just keep rising every year. Because of this, the snow under the feet of tourists is giving way more often. It's especially dangerous on snow cornices, the overhanging mass of hardened snow on the edge of a precipice. Just recently, at the end of May this year, people lined up in a huge queue, and the snow cornice beneath them collapsed. 2 people are considered missing, but most likely they didn't make it. You know how they transport nuclear weapons? It's not like in the movies with a convoy of cars, blaring sirens, and trucks with radioactive hazard signs. At least in the US, they just move those warheads around the country in regular trucks. No special markings. Of course, the trucks look regular only from the outside. They actually have 12-inch steel doors and puncture-resistant tires. There's a crash, the trailer automatically fills with rapidly expanding foam to cushion the precious cargo. These trucks are escorted by regular cars. In short, everything's done to avoid raising suspicions or questions. Moving explosive weapons across state borders is surprisingly common in the USA. Plutonium decays over time, so nuclear bombs need regular testing and maintenance. This requires transporting them to different facilities, which can sometimes be thousands of miles apart. So it's quite possible that many of us have been within arm's reach of nuclear weapons capable of destroying the planet without even realizing it. These shots were taken on April 8th of this year, when people from many countries had the chance to witness a solar eclipse with their own eyes. But just like with the Northern Lights, everything looks much more fascinating from space. An eclipse is essentially the shadow of the moon falling on Earth in a particular location and slowly shifting. And if you're into disaster movies, this is probably how a black hole opening up inside our planet would look. What a stunning shot. You know that feeling when you start pacing around during a long phone call just to keep yourself busy? Turns out, it's not just humans who do that. Although for this bear named Ina, there's actually a sad story behind it. For 20 years, she lived in cramped conditions, sharing a cage with her sister, and got used to having very little space. Then Ina was taken to a sanctuary where there was plenty of anything, but old habits die hard, and the bear kept pacing in a tiny circle. It's like post-traumatic stress disorder, just like with humans. One day, sanctuary staff put a rock in her path to block her from pacing, and eventually Ina started to give up the habit. This is an example of repetitive behavior commonly observed in many animal species in zoos. It's particularly common among predators with large natural habitats, like bears. It's just more evidence that wild animals belong in the wild, not in zoos. Even if some people think the animals have spacious enclosures. Since you've made it this far, make sure you hit the like button. See you later.